Oh, hi, how can I help you?
Hi there, I'm new to metal detecting and I'd like to buy my first detector today. What do you have in the $300 region?
We'd like it to be waterproof, with an adjustable stem and lightweight too.
Absolutely, and I also need great depth as well. I'd like wireless audio, USB rechargeable, and it would be great if you had software updates.
I've been detecting for 30 years, and there's no way you can get all of that for that price.
And that is where this gentleman is wrong, because there is one option. Only one though. The Nocta Macro Simplex.
And the Simplex becomes the best-selling product worldwide, setting a new bar in terms of price-performance ratio. Simplex has advanced in many ways: hardware, software, design, and ergonomics. Yet one thing has stayed the same: worldwide proven performance and success, backed up by a company that cares. Nocta Simplex New Generation. For every budget.
Thursday, it's 8 o'clock, and it's the Big Detecting Show. And you may notice I'm on my own. That's because we forgot that Adrian was going on holiday. And he seems to be in the middle of the Mediterranean on a big ship somewhere. And I hope he's having a lovely time. I can't share the photograph he did send to me last night publicly. There was nakedness involved. Only Adrian. He was going to try and join us on the show tonight, but the price of the internet access on there is a little bit ridiculous. But we have a fantastic show lined up tonight. We're joined momentarily by Jenna Goodwin, also known as the Red Haired Stokie. And we'll learn all about Jenna and what she does regarding histories, mysteries, folklore, and metal detecting. Very excited to speak to her, as I know Adrian was, but whenever we have a guest like this, Adrian always ends to be drunk or somewhere else. So anyway, it seems that James has also had said pictures of Adrian as well. Saying nothing. So, what's been happening this week? Well, from ourselves, me and Shane are in the process of lining up another dig in the next couple of weeks. I've just found out that our guest lives actually moments from the last dig we had last week. And if I'd have known, I would have given her a shout to come along. Isn't it hard on my own? It's not. I'm missing me crutch here. Adrian's me crutch. Anyway, so the other big news this week is obviously the new XP product that's been released, which we've got a short video for those who haven't seen it. 1 minute 17 long. We'll have a look at that, and then we'll get straight into speaking to Jenna. So, without further ado, here is the XP product. Well, something tells me it's going to be a little bit of trouble digging up 5 meters with a McGrafter or a Blackadder spade. So I don't know. Obviously, that's potentially going to be more for the likes of archaeology or potentially looking at pipes and pipelines and such like. So don't know what's going to go on there. We'll find out a little bit more, obviously. We'll speak to Nigel and Marcus, find out a little bit from their behalf. Will, I would have loved to have made that picture Adrian's wall, but I've got no idea how Adrian makes Adrian's wall. So that's Adrian's wall. Anyway, I'd like to introduce you to Jenna. Good evening, Jenna.
Hi, you're right.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for coming on. Are you well?
I am, yes, thank you. You?
Ready for bed, but I'm always ready for bed.
Oh,
Can you introduce yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
yes, my name's Jenna. I'm also known as the Red Haired Stokie. So I am primarily a horse photographer. That's my actual profession. But my hobby is history. And when I say hobby, a bit like everybody, I take it a little bit too extreme. So I would basically call myself a local historian. Completely self-taught, and I run a local history blog called the Red Haired Stokie, as well as a weekly YouTube show and podcast, also called the Red Haired Stokie, all about local history, all about Staffordshire, and it's basically gone crazy. I started it mostly to make history more accessible to people, because I did tend to find that a lot of the history blogs and books were quite boring to read unless you were genuinely interested in the history, like in the way that we are. So I wanted to make it more, more acceptable, more easy to access. And that's why I started doing the weekly show and releasing it as a podcast, so people who didn't like to read too much could listen to it. And the blog is for people that want to read and view the photographs. And it's also somewhere where I can share a lot of the photos and exploring and, you know, the history that I find of, you know, tunnels that have been lost and history like that. And all of this is also off the back of the fact that I am a keen metal detectorist as well. It's something that detecting is something I always wanted to do, but I could never afford a detector up until I think it was 2019 when I finally bit the bullet and treated myself to a Eurotech Pro that someone was selling on a detecting page pretty cheap. And I just got bit by the bug from there, really. And I'm lucky because being a horse photographer, I know a lot of people who own land. So I've got quite a lot to go at rurally. So, yeah.
And we spoke before the show, obviously being a local historian, researching lots of different areas, it's led you to some of the, well, one of the sites you've just told me about. It's smack bang in the middle of history itself. So we'll get on to that a little bit later on anyway. You obviously, there's mythology and folklore, which I'm absolutely, I've been involved in areas of that for the past 30 years, more or less. My library behind me will tell you that for no problem whatsoever. So, you know, it's something that obviously when I've seen your thing, I've written myself about, for instance, Molly Lee, the witch of Burslem. But you've expanded my knowledge by your research and the information that you've put out there about her as well.
Yeah, the thing is, I absolutely love folklore and mythology. I love anything paranormal. I love all things like that. But what I love more is the facts that they're based on.
Mm-hmm.
So Molly Lee was a really interesting one for me because from a young age, I never really thought that the story was correct. I always felt that there must have been more to it. If she lived in a cottage on her own land, she can't have been poor. If she was self-sufficient and she was in a 40s, 50s when she died, she can't have been that disfigured. She can't have been that disabled. And all of this led me to want to know more about her as a woman. She genuinely lived. She's not a pretend story. She was a genuine woman. There's actual archival records.
Mm-hmm.
I went and dug through them, and I found out that, in fact, she wasn't a disfigured witch. She was an incredibly wealthy woman. She was not high status, but high status for the area. You know, she was friends with quite high-powered people, magistrates and things like that. And she never married. She never had any children. And I think her independence is what threatened the people and the people in the local area. And like Derek's just said in the comments there, every myth, legend or folklore has a root in reality somewhere. I completely agree. And that's what I love looking for. And I did an article not so long ago on the chained oak. And again, I absolutely loved delving into that because, yes, there is a legend, but what is it based on? And
well, for people who don't know about that one, if you've ever been to Alton Towers, there's a attraction in the towers itself, or was based on the chained oak, and I think a lot of people became more aware of the chained oak thanks to that, and thought that the chained oak story was actually real. So,
yeah,
I'll let you tell people about that.
Yeah, I mean, the ride at Alton Towers is Hex. If anybody's been on it, it's a horrible ride. The room spins. It makes you very nauseous. But as you're going in, the story goes that the Earl was riding on his carriage along the carriageway back to the Towers, which is the big castle, and he came across a beggar woman or man. So it's very different sometimes. And the beggar asked for a coin. He said no, shoot him off the road, went back, and the beggar was like, right, I'm going to curse you for every branch that falls off this big oak tree. Your members of your family are going to die. And then the legend says that night there was a terrible storm, the branch fell off and someone in his family died. So he actually went and had the chained oak chained up. And again, it's been passed down for so long that there's got to be some kind of fact to it. So I went digging, and it turns out that there isn't a lot of archival information about it in terms of the story about the beggar and things like that, but there is about the tree. And it turned out that about 200 years ago, one of the earls actually had the tree chained up with huge, big, thick metal chains, because the branches were falling off, and it was at that time about a 600-year-old tree. So it was just to protect it, really. But obviously, driving through the woods, that was the main carriageway from Cheadle to the towers and to the villages. So he had it chained up for security so it didn't fall on people that were going along the carriageway. And there is a record of that. It was actually in the Sentinel talking about it, the actual record of it. And, the chains came from Alton, because Alton was an ironworks. It's where they made metal. It's where they made chains. And it all just comes together and makes sense when you look back. It's not quite as interesting as the folklore of the chained oak. But when you look back and you think how superstitious people were and how tales get passed down, you can see the little bits of story where it came from and how it sort of snowballs into the folklore and the myths that we hear today.
And it still exists today, and it's easily accessible for everybody. Parking's a bit rubbish, but it's easily accessible for anybody to go to the chained oak. And it's quite mesmeric itself, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's nice to walk to, and it is a beautiful old tree. It's a beautiful old tree. It's a beautiful old forest, to be honest with you. It's an old hunting forest, and you can still walk along the old carriageway, and you can still walk along the old footpath as well, both of which go through Alton Towers.
But you're not allowed to go on them anymore.
Technically.
So take us back, Jenna. Where did it all begin for you? What was the first thing that you can remember actually delving into yourself?
I wanted to be an archaeologist my entire life. From a young age, I always wanted to be an archaeologist. And when I was about 10, I think, Time Team, which I used to watch religiously, by the way, came to Burslem, and they dug Wedgwood's old ivy works, which is where Ceramica was at the crossroads in Burslem. And my auntie and my nan took me to the dig.
Brilliant.
To watch it. And I think from that moment, I always wanted to be an archaeologist. The problem is I don't do very well with vocational education. And when I used to tell people at school what I wanted to do, and they were like, oh, well, you've got to do this, you've got to go get this degree, you've got to go do this, and then you'll just be sitting in a dusty room in a museum. And I was like, thinking about it now, sitting in a dusty room in a museum sounds like a dream. But, when you're 15, people don't do that. So I ended up going and working with horses instead. But it never died. I've always been fascinated with history. And I think that's what led me to metal detecting. I think metal detecting is, for me, my form of archaeology.
As many others of us, exactly the same. Luckily, I've been able to participate in archaeological digs myself as a member of a team, and that really is something totally unique and different to what we metal detectists experience.
Yeah.
But so you 2019, so you've only been detecting per se for about the past 4 years. Since you bit the bullet.
Yeah.
And do you go out often?
Not as often as I would like. I go out more in the winter, weirdly, because with being a horse photographer, obviously my weekends are mostly taken up photographing horses. And in the winter, because it's more of a seasonal job, horses. Nobody really wants photos of their horses when it's -4. So I don't go out as much as I would like to in the summer, but I do try to get out regularly if I can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm member of a group in Congleton, metal detecting group. So you're more than welcome to come and join us one Monday night once a month and join the group if you want as well. If it's only 40 minutes from Teen, isn't it, Congleton?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
And I've got an absolutely fantastic story I'll share with you off air at some point regarding a burial in Staffordshire, which was moved from Stone to the area that it's in now, and why it's in the position it is, and what we found regarding that. That's dead interesting, considering all the how should we say, the paper-boo paranormalists tend to report the site. It's totally incorrect to what the reality is. And again, it was great finding the reality is out exactly the same as you find out the reality. Yeah. So you're how long have you been the Red Haired Stokie? How long has the website and the everything else been going?
I only started the website, I think, February, beginning of this year. Yeah, it's really taken off. But I already had a little bit of a following, I think, before that, because I've been involved in quite a lot of local history things, including like helping save things like doing the photography for Fenton Town Hall when they saved that. And I do a lot of heritage photography as well. I like to record the history of the area in the way that photographers did in the past, because we all love looking at old photographs. We do. We all love looking at how the area used to look, at buildings that aren't there anymore, the way the roads used to lie. And I think people now don't take photographs of places, they take photographs of themselves in places. And I think it's really important for someone now to archive the area as it is. If you think about Stoke-on-Trent, for example, now, and how it looked 20 years ago, then you'll realise why it's important. Because 20 years ago, phone cameras were not a thing particularly. Mm-hmm. They were very low pixel, and photographers still went out and did photos of the local area. We've got photos from, the late 90s of pubs and clubs and streets and things like that. There's nothing now. People don't take pictures of their local area unless there's a problem, or they're taking a photograph of themselves and something. So I think it's really, really important to go out and take photographs of the area as it is now, so that in another 100 years' time, people will have something to look at the way that we look at photos 100 years ago. And I think that's why people started following me. And I do artistic photos of the local area as well. And I also do art. So I draw and I paint of the, pictures of the local area, and I sell that, and people have got them hanging in their homes. And I think that's why people relate to me a little bit, is because I love our history, I love our heritage, and I not only want to protect it and record it, but I also want to share it with people.
Yeah.
I want people to see our area how I see it. I don't want people to just think about the bad things about Stoke-on-Trent. I want them to look up at the nice buildings. I want them to realise that we've got 40 different Art Deco buildings that people drive past every day and don't notice. I want people to realise that the Victorian architecture and the buildings in the area are so important and they need saving, but then tell them why. Show them what it was used for. Give them the history of these things, which makes people want to save them more. Instead, like that picture that you've just put there, that's Trenton Baths. That's empty. It's the library and the museum and the bit at the front there is being turned into apartments. Good. I say good. We don't need libraries anymore. We don't need public spaces like that anymore. There's no parking. That building costs too much to keep as a public amenity. The council do not want it. But if a developer takes it and tastefully converts it into apartments and keeps the frontage the same, then we get to keep our heritage and that building gets looked after. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, is explain the history of things whilst also bringing it into the 21st century and saying, look, guys, we need these buildings protected, but we need to be open-minded about it.
And there's obviously, I've just pulled up another one Your ad blockings do me, Addy.
Sorry.
I've just pulled up another one as well, a side-by-side photograph. And it's obviously, we see them quite often, but Stoke-on-Trent, for instance, I'm alien to the locality. I'm from Ellesmere Port, so seeing things like this, I've seen some of the buildings, again, because I'm concentrating on the roads, because I'm generally driving and don't know the area, I miss things like this. And when you see it side by side with an original photograph from the 1800s, or when was that, early 1900s? Fantastic.
Yeah, it's probably about 1920.
So, what's this one?
That's Stoke Station.
Right.
So-
yeah, of course it is. I went there for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
So you've got Stoke Station there, and then opposite Stoke Station, you've got the North Stafford Hotel. And then there's a square, and it's all that architecture. As you can see, that's another one of the building, of the actual station.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy for people to say that, oh, we don't live in a very nice area, it's a bit rough, blah, blah, blah. But the buildings, the architecture is exactly the same as it used to be. Nothing has changed. Those buildings are still the same now, and they will still be the same in 100 years. They just don't change. And we need to look after them and make sure that they stay the same in another 100 years. And the station has been granted a massive funding. With all the thing that's going on with the goods yard in Stoke, you might have seen the massive cranes as you're driving through.
Yeah.
They're building like a big complex there. But part of that is they're going to, just there where you're looking at them pictures, the glass roof.
Yeah.
That's a later addition to the train station.
Right.
And all of that is being replaced and repaired and upgraded. In keeping with it, it's not been updated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's absolutely destroyed at the moment. There's panels missing, it's all rusty. So they've got a big grant to do up the station. And I think it's important to, again, record it. So these pictures, them pictures are from 100 years ago. These pictures are from now. And when it's all been taken apart and put back together and refurbished, I'll take more. Because it's important to record these things for future generations. And
It is. I mean, look at the difference for that
Yeah.
one to that one. That's quite the difference.
But it's not, because if you look,
Oh yeah, you can see the underneath of it. But the likes of
the buildings are still the same.
the likes of that one on the right hand side there, and at the bottom it's got the black and white, making it look totally different. And the facades are the different, but everything else is the same. So you don't realise that what lies underneath.
Do you know what I noticed the most? And it's really weird. You'll notice it with this one, actually. The worst thing for me, and I think the thing that makes our areas not look photogenic anymore, are road markings and signs.
Yeah.
There's no road markings and signs in any old photographs, and they all look really beautiful and open plan. But then you go onto the newer ones, and all the modern signage on the shops, the road markings and bollards and signs, I think completely ruin the look. I know they're necessary, obviously, but
And the size of their top hat's brilliant.
yeah.
I take it that's a pottery. Is that a pottery at the back behind the cottage?
It's a tile factory.
Tile
Stoke.
factory.
Yeah.
So obviously it doesn't exist now.
A little tiny bit of it is still there, actually, just a little bit. And it still makes tiles.
Yeah.
But there, you see that building there with the dome on the top?
Yeah.
That's an Art Deco building. That's an old co-op building. And that's still there. And we've got loads of buildings like that in Stoke. Loads. We went through a real Art Deco sort of fad. And I do think we should have trams.
Absolutely.
When I look at these old photographs, it does make me realise that I think transport in Stoke-on-Trent could do with a real shake-up. Or Staffordshire in general. I don't know if anybody's watching us from anywhere near Blythe Bridge, but you can't get anywhere in the Staffordshire Moorlands because
nobody's watching from Blythe Bridge at the moment because they're all stuck in traffic there.
Literally, yeah. Anywhere in the Staffordshire Moorlands, you might as well walk.
Do you know, I was at I'm at a course in Hanley on a Monday at the GMB offices, and off the course didn't even turn up on Monday because they were stuck in it for 3 hours in the traffic because they changed the roundabout to the opposite way. They got there and went home.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But then I think people aren't really catching the bus anymore. You know, there's more cars than ever. Stoke-on-Trent's infrastructure is just not built for it. And I just think when you look at city centres like Manchester and things where the cars synchronise with the trams, and I think trams would be better than buses, personally. They should never take them away.
As I say, I go in every Monday, and so we basically go to Wetherspoons for lunch on a Monday. So that sort of area, I mean, the Wetherspoons, the building itself is absolutely stunning from the inside when you actually take in that dome glass roof inside there.
Which one's that?
The Reginald Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely stunning inside. I didn't know there was another one, to be honest. But there's so many. I mean, there's been loads of building work down that end of town that I've noticed over the past year or so, and it just seems to have flattened things, and nothing else has been developed thereafter. You know, there's all these plans that you hear of, but you know, nothing seems to move on.
Sorry, I'm just to comment here. When I say Stoke, do I mean the town of Stoke or the 6 individual towns? When I say Stoke, I mean Stoke-on-Trent as a rule. But the blog post that we were just talking about was Stoke. The pictures were Stoke-upon-Trent, which is pretty confusing if you're not local, because Stoke town.
It was very confusing when I first came up here.
Yeah, Stoke. You've got Stoke-on-Trent, which is made up of 6 towns, and one of the towns is Stoke. And it's actually Stoke-upon-Trent is the town, and Stoke-upon-Trent is the capital of Stoke-on-Trent, and it should be the city centre. It used to be the city centre until the council decided that Hanley was going to be the city centre, and just confused everybody. So Stoke-on-Trent is the city, and Stoke-upon-Trent is the town. But yeah.
And what there's Hanley was the one of the other one, Burslem, and what else were the other of the
You've got Hanley, Stoke, Fenton, Tunstall, Burslem, and Longton.
Got you. Because I always get mixed up because obviously I work with a lot of people from the area and they say, oh, I'm from such and such. I'm like, I have no idea where that is.
Yeah, they are just the main 6 towns, but there's also a lot of other towns and villages in the areas. The reason there's just the main 6 is because each one of them had their own town council. And in 1912, when they amalgamated them all together into the city, it was them 6 that were put together to make the city council. Very
confusing for us who don't live there. And
it's confusing for people that do live here.
Angie's from, she was born in Newcastle under Lyme, and she still gets confused.
Yeah.
And there's another one of your blogs as well. I mean, I picked up on this before I came across the Red Haired Stokie. The basically Newcastle and Stoke are slowly disappearing below the ground.
Yeah. It's the mining. I don't think people realise when we talk about the mining and the industry, the historical industry in Stoke-on-Trent, just how big this was. I mean, everybody's like, oh, it's the potteries, and we used to make pottery. Yeah, we used to make pottery, and that's fine. We used to make pottery and send it all over the world. But how do you make pottery? You need a kiln. And what powers a kiln? Coal. And then you need clay. And then you need quicklime. And all of these things were mined from the local area. So we've got, I mean, mining in Stoke-on-Trent goes right back to the Romans, right back to even before that. But there's actually records of the Romans mining in Stoke-on-Trent. And when we talk about mining back then, it was just open cast. They just dug a hole and took whatever they found. But the Romans were notorious for taking resources from an area. And that's how they became so big. It's how they expanded across the Roman Empire. So when they came to Stoke-on-Trent and North Staffordshire, they were like, whoa, hang on a minute. This place is like made of coal. And this place is made of clay. So they actually started making pottery in Stoke-on-Trent and sending it back to the Roman Empire because our clay was that good. And they found, various fragments of that Roman pottery around the North Staffordshire area. But talking about the blog post that you were on about, because there's such a history of mining, we then took it too far, like they always do, and it became such a competitive industry that they were digging down and digging down and digging down and almost not thinking of the consequences. Each individual pit, up until about the 1700s, just dug, and nobody knew where it was going to dig, and nobody knew where you were going to come out. They just kept going and following the seams until they dried up. And it was only really in the 1800s that they started keeping records of where they were. And if you go to the Coal Authority, which I have done, there's entire maps. In fact, if you go online and search for the Coal Authority maps of North Staffordshire coal fields, you can just see why.
Riddled.
It's just the little crosses on the map are all the pit heads and all of the open casts, and then the lines of the seams. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tunnels all underneath Stoke-on-Trent. And every time one of these got to the point where they'd eaten the coal seam off, they didn't fill them in. They just left them and they just filled with water. And then there's a couple of mining disasters. I did do a blog post on the mining disasters where they went down and hit other tunnels and then they were flooded or they exploded. And because of this, all of these tunnels all over the years have gone up and up and up and up, and they've filled full of water. Well, you think if someone dug a hole in the 1700s and, protected it with wooden struts in the 1700s, and then suddenly that's full of water, that's what, 200-300 years now, 200 years later, that wood is no more. That mine has collapsed. And once they all start going, and they all start collapsing, we live on top of them.
In a strange twist, the first picture that is on this particular blog, one of my friends and the viewers, Angie, her uncle, was actually killed in this pit disaster at the mini pit.
Oh, the mini pit, yeah.
Yeah. And Derek, her partner, says he's got his spray bottle hanging from his belt belonged to him.
Wow. Yeah, I did a blog post on the worst mining disasters in North Staffordshire. Again, I don't think people realise just how bad. My dad was a miner, and my granddad. My entire family are either miners or potters. In fact, my family's maiden name is Potts. That's how long we've been at Stoke. And I've been tracing our family tree as well. We do it every Thursday. The family meet up and we trace the family tree. We've gone right back to the 1400s and we're mostly still in Stoke. But yeah, the pits and the disasters and the pit collapses and even all of the pits like Chatterley Whitfield, Hanley Deep Pit, Victoria Colliery, all of them, they weren't filled in when they closed them.
Yeah.
They just left them. There's just big giant holes underground. Lots and lots and lots of giant holes, like a big rabbit warren. And as they collapse, Stoke-on-Trent sinks. And it's sinking a good few millimetres each year. We've got one of the worst rates of house subsidence in the country.
Fascinating. Again, goddamn stupid flies. Sorry, great uncle, not Uncle Ange. Do apologise. Not that old. Lucy Dixie, LFVR. I live near Chatterley Whitfield and seen some huge holes under some of the houses there. Mental. Yeah, there's so much. I mean, I drive around and obviously I think to myself, it's like what's it called? The Torque, the Miller and Carter at Torque. You can tell that area's been done. I mean, there's the memorial there on the hill, that sort of way. I take it that's for mining as well, isn't it?
No, that's a wedge.
Oh, it's not. Do apologise.
The one,
There's
the
my
pointy
knowledge.
one on top of the hill.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a Wedgwood Memorial.
right. That's
Used to be a lot taller, but it broke.
Yeah. And you know, there is so much more for you to find out as well, I'm sure, because,
Yeah.
you know, it's a big county, Staffordshire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting with Stoke-on-Trent and working my way out because obviously I live in the Staffordshire Moorlands now. So I don't live far from Alton Towers. And that area is fascinating history-wise. I mean, we're talking right back to the Saxons, that sort of history. It's amazing. There's actually there's prehistory up there, so prehistoric. And that's a little bit further than I tend to go. But I do love the history, and I'm focusing on North Staffordshire at the moment, but I will head down into South Staffordshire. But I just don't think you can ever run out of history. I mean, I do everything from the common things that people know right down to trying to discover things that people have forgotten about or that, you know, they didn't think were there anymore. Like there's a tunnel underneath the centre of Stoke, and I know it's there. I know it's there. I've found records that it was used in World War II and as an air raid shelter. It was a canal tunnel. And I know it's there because someone I was talking to used to work with someone at the council that used to have to go down and do the security checks down there, make sure the road wasn't collapsing. But I don't know how to get in it. And
Well, when you find out, let me know and I'll come too.
Yeah, well, when I find it, honestly, I've got a friend who he's got a YouTube channel called Dean Explores.
I've heard of Dean, yeah.
Yeah, Dean is my squirrel. He'll go in any hole, anywhere. He loves exploring. And I found, I don't know if you've seen the blog post that's on the Malcop tramway.
Yes.
I did. Well, he did the video. He went into it. I'm a little bit too chicken to go down things that might kill me. I like looking at.
I'll do it, but I'm too big to get into them.
Well, he's tiny. He's really, really small and slim, and he loves to do things like that. So he took his friend, and they went and did the Malcop tramway, and they went right to the back, right to the far end, and videoed and photographed the whole thing. The video is absolutely brilliant. If anybody wants to go and watch it, it's Dean
Certainly have a
Explores.
look at that. And that's if you go to at the bottom, I've got it running at the bottom of the screen, the redhairedstokie.co.uk. And I'll while that's on there, I'll change it to another one. So if you want to follow Jenna on YouTube and social media, basically just look for the Red Haired Stokie.
Pretty much, yeah. You just Google it. I think it'll probably come up with most things because I don't think there's many red-haired Stokies about, if I'm honest with you.
Well, I know we haven't got you for much longer, Jenna. So I'm going to ask you about your metal detecting because obviously people be interested in that. Oh, the guy who does the canals in Manchester. I can't remember his name.
Oh, yeah.
He actually went to the plug hole that when it unplugs in the canal, it feeds to the river below. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
He was on the show a couple of years ago, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Brilliant videos he does. Goes out. I love urbexing. I do absolutely love it.
I mean, I've got a big list of ones that I need to do, but I just run out of time.
One of my favourite ones was behind Buxton Raceway, the health and safety laboratories.
The tunnels.
The grounds of them, absolutely brilliant. Loved it up there. Some fantastic photographing up there as well.
I think my favourite one that we ever did, and it's still there now, but it's not really standing much, is Denby Mental Home in Wales.
Yeah.
Wow, what a place that was! What a building, and it's just wasted.
I was lucky. My brother was security at the Countess of Chester for a while, so the old 1829 Victorian asylum in there, we were in there, and that was still had the bloody beds and the manacles. There's the tunnel that ran from there to the main railway that they used to get the patients off there and take them through the tunnels instead of letting the rich people see them on the streets.
Yeah,
absolutely fascinating.
We did North Staff's hospital before it was demolished. We did nearly all of that. We just couldn't get to the morgue because the security were in the way. But we went to all the operating theatres and everything. All the lights were still on. All the power was still on. It was fascinating, but we did find a couple of tunnels under the hospital that were old. That since then I've found were actually original tunnels to the medieval hospital that was there before the hospital. So that's another blog post that I'm working on. So I need to figure out a bit more about that, because if there was a medieval hospital and the medieval arches are still there, they're not going to be able to build on that land. But then I might get assassinated because, you know, they don't like history, do they?
Yeah, they won't find you. They just know you're the Red Haired Stokie. We won't tell them your real name.
But yeah, there's, I mean, a couple of comments about tunnels and things. Tunnels and things underground fascinate me, as you'll see if you had a look at my blog. But Tony's put that maybe we've got a secret tunnel in our garden. Rumour is it goes under the road to the post office. I'd love to hear more about that, Tony, if you want to contact me.
So Tony Kaywood, if that's him, he's up in either Harrogate or Huddersfield, one of the two. I
don't mind doing a bit of research further afield.
There you go, Tony.
I'm a bit obsessed with old maps and things.
You'll meet Tony because he travels all the way down to our dig, so you'll meet Tony.
Yeah.
He's ace. There's a small video of him actually. It's only a small video of one of his YouTube videos. A bit of a it's 9 seconds, Jen. I'll just throw it on now.
That's my kind of video skills.
That's Adrian's favourite one of all time.
Oh, brilliant.
So metal detecting, you started in 2019 and you don't get out as much as me and many other people, I'm sure. What sort of finds have you been having? Because I know you have got a site that's close to a Roman road. You know, what things are you bringing up on that site, for instance?
Well, I've never found anything Roman. I've never found a hammered. I've never found any of the coveted things that a metal detector should find. But I have found some weird stuff, and I have found things that do link local history. So they're not valuable, but they're valuable to me. The best thing I've found for me was a cannonball and a blunderbuss ball, which was really weird because it was in a field on Ashbank in Warrington. And
was it you found that?
Yeah,
I was reading about that the other day.
Yeah, I wrote the blog post about it because it was really driving me mad, because there's an old hall there, but it's not that old. It was like a Victorian hall. And I couldn't find any details of a battle or anything that would, any reason there would be a cannonball in this field. And then I found out that the English Civil War came through Staffordshire.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the cannon Roaring Meg with them that was fired from Gun Hill in Leek, which is why it's called Gun Hill. And they attacked Biddulph Hall, which is why it's a ruin. It's got big holes in from Roaring Meg the cannon. And then I found out that there was this battle in Biddulph, and then there was a battle in Stafford, the famous one in Stafford that everybody knows about. And I couldn't figure out how it sort of intertwined. And then I found out that in Bagnall, there's a little village called Bagnall in the Staffordshire Moorlands, and there's a really old house there, and there's an engraving on the wall in the wood. And when the army came through, they actually stayed there and made that their armory, and there's all the sharpening marks on the wall from where they sharpened all the weapons.
Wow.
And then when they went from Staffordshire, from Bagnall to Stafford, they went through Warrington, and something happened, and Cromwell's men were attacked, and they had a massive battle that there was not really any record of. And apparently it was a really brutal battle, and the people that were sent to ambush Cromwell's men were totally obliterated, and there was arms and heads and everything anywhere, and that's why the road through Warrington is called Armshead Road. So there was this like mini skirmish battle, and that's where I found the cannonball.
Do you know, I've got numerous things that I want to tell you about some of the things that tie into that or may tie into what you're doing that I've found out through previous research when I was the paranormally type person myself.
Yeah.
One of them, which I think is very interesting, I found out a couple of days ago, and this is how I found the Cannonball article, because I was looking for a particular battle. A lot of local people, historically, folklore, have told me all about the Battle of Scarlet Lake, which is sort of Draycott area, which was English Civil War. And it's something I've been trying, but I can't find any information out about it. So
In Draycott?
Draycott area, yeah, that's sort of going down to the A50, the Battle of Scarlet Lake. And it was called the Battle of Scarlet Lake because of the amount of blood that was lost at the scene. So I can't find any evidence of it.
But it could also be called Scarlet Lake because Blythe Bridge used to be a marsh. When the Romans were in Blythe, the reason it's called Blythe Bridge is because of Blythe was a marsh.
Right.
It was just water, and they had to build a bridge across the Blythe.
I'm with you.
So all of that area was water, and then Philip Willis just put it ironstone. One of the things about is the water's red,
right,
because it runs through the iron.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where it came from.
Yeah.
So it would be the right place.
Yeah. So that's our little bit of joint research thing there. We have to find the site of the Battle of Scarlet Lake. And it's interesting, again, where you say about the bridge over the Blythe, it'd be interesting to find the route of that. I'm personally trying to, my locality between Leek, Congleton area, I'm trying to plot the route of the Earl's Way, which was used by the Earls of Chester to collect all the taxes and such like. And I've got a sort of idea where it is because we've actually done a metal detecting rally on part of the site, and we believe that, well, there's evidence and the names of the farms there that point to it being in a certain area. And I've got an idea where it went to as well. But brilliant area, all that for obviously the history and what have you. I could speak all night to you, Jenna.
Just to answer Matthew's question, would be tricky to metal detect with all that iron. Yes, it is, which is why I had to update my metal detector. We've got iron ore, which is why Alton used to have iron foundries and things. So if you don't have a detector that can separate between the two, you will just end up with a million false readings and you just get hot rocks. They're just basically little rocks. Because I also tried a little bit of magnet fishing. And I thought, I'll go to Alton off the bridge. It's a historic place. No, I just literally brought up rocks. That's all that stuck to the magnet was just rocks. So,
it makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I had to upgrade my detector to something that could separate between the two. And I went for the Vanquish 540.
Stephen Brame is searching for the Battle of Brunanburh around the Rosendale area. If I'm right, the area of the Brunanburh battle is actually, it was classed as Bromborough on the Wirral, if it's the same one. And archaeologists have recently actually found the site of that, and this paper's been published all over the place about the Battle of Brunanburh. And it's on the Wirral, and it's, again, fascinating. I actually asked to be, as the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine, to go to one of their finds recording days from where they were bringing everything in. But sadly, because it says Metal Detecting in the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine name, they weren't interested whatsoever.
Yeah.
So,
and that's half the problem. I think the archaeology world would be a lot better if they worked hand in hand with detectorists.
you certainly would.
And yeah, like you've just been saying about the battle there, they're marked as battlefields. There's papers made on them. I would love for the battle up near Armshead to be a recorded battle site. But you've got to dig. We've got to find the information about it. I've found evidence now, physical evidence, and there is archive records that the army did march through that area. We just need to find evidence of archival evidence of the skirmish. So find out why and who it was and what the outcome was before it can be recorded. But I'm confident it'll be out there somewhere.
Fascinating, isn't it? And I mean, one of the other big things for the area as well is it's the history of its rail networks as well. And there's some great walks. I mean, I've got one right next to my house, the Biddulph line. The Churnet Valley Railway has been updated year after year. They're getting more sites of that to add to it. And we were actually at a rally, the Midlands Detecting Days rally last June. And I'm detecting away in the field and there's a bloody steam train passing me. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's like miles, yeah. We've got a couple. They're trying to reopen the leak line. The leak. They're doing quite well with it as well. But yeah, it's a sight, and it's watching a steam train power through the fields and under the old Victorian bridges and things like that.
It is absolutely.
But
one thing I'm going to ask you to do, Jenna, we have a yearly sort of ghosty tales night round Halloween. So if you're free on one of them Thursdays, I'd love you to come back on the show, and obviously we can talk a little about the history of the paranormal in the area as well. Obviously, I know your bits and bobs, but I'm sure you could open a lot of people's eyes. And as I say,
I absolutely love the paranormal, and I love supernatural, and I'm a skeptic to a point, but there's only so far that you can be a skeptic when there's so many records of things, and when you've seen weird stuff yourself. Staffordshire's definitely a hotbed of this sort of thing, from headless horsemen to grey ladies and black-eyed children on Cannock Chase. I did do a blog post about mythology and things like that, but yeah, Alton Towers has got its own ghosts. I mean, Alton Towers used to be an abbey, and there's it's been taken over by the Chained Oak, but there's a real sort of history of monks being seen in Alton Towers and being seen walking across the fields. So there's definitely loads to add to that. Definitely.
We could be here all week, but you said you're going to pop away for a bit early. If you want to disappear now, that's fine by me, Jenna. If you want to stay a little bit longer, we can.
Yeah, I can stay a little bit longer. Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. All's going smoothly. If anybody's got any questions for Jenna, please ask away.
His question there. He's asked, do you use Record Office and libraries? Yes, I do. There is a lot of archives online now, which is great. It makes it a lot more accessible for people. But there's also a lot that aren't online. I use a lot of books. I use a lot of old books, and I'm a bit of a bibliophile, so I like to go to antique shops. And I don't know if you've ever been to the bookshop in Dagfields. They've got a cracking local history section. And I keep finding books in there. And there's a little bookshop in Milton that's the same, giving all my trade secrets away now. They both have local history books by authors from like 40, 50 years ago up to about 100 years ago that aren't in print anymore. You can't buy them. And I've secured quite a few of them. And a couple of them I've got memories of people that like died probably 70 years ago. And they were in the 70s when they were recorded. So this is written, verbal memories of people from like 140 years ago of our local area. And I think that's fantastic. I'm good friends with a couple of local historians who are actual qualified, proper historians, not just hobbyists like me. And them guys are absolutely brilliant. They'll answer any questions. They don't gatekeep their history. There's a couple of them that do, and I've had to block a couple of people on Facebook for being, I don't know what, I find that some historians like to gatekeep. They like to be the ones with the knowledge. They want to be the only ones that write about it, and they think they're the only ones that can go to the archives. They think just because you're not 70 and you you find some stuff on the internet that you're not interested in. You shouldn't be able to do this stuff. But for the most part, I find that the community is really good. And sometimes if you just ask a question on social media about something in the local area, people will reply and tell you things that their grandparents have told them, or rumors of this, and that's how I get a lot of my information, is from people who live in the area, who've lived in the area for years. The biggest problem I do find is the record office is gatekeep. And I'm hoping that this is going to change when the council have finished the new library, because apparently the plans are that there's going to be a new archive office.
Brilliant.
Because at the moment you have to book to go in, and then you have to tell them what you want. And it's like, I don't know what I want. I've got no idea. I don't even know where to start. If I'm looking for a battle that happened 300 years ago, and I don't know any of the names, and I don't know where it was, and I don't know when it was, how do I ask them to get that record for me?
You are the female version of me, Jenna, to the point that we actually say book. A lot of people have picked up on we say that the correct way of saying it, by the way.
I am Stokie through and through, that's why. Phillips asked, do you have a specific time period of history that you're interested in? Yeah, I would say anything. I like social history. I like human history. And I love anything from the Romans are my first fascination. And then like to the Tudors and the Stuarts, which is another totally different ball game. The world changed completely under them, and the Elizabethan times. And more modern, I love the Victorian era. I think the world changed so much under Victoria. And that was the Industrial Revolution, and how Stoke-on-Trent became one of the biggest cities in the world, not in size. So yeah, they are my main interests. I like Saxon history, but it's not something that I am fascinated by. I'm much more interested in the Romans, and I'm not sure why. I think it's because of the influence that they left on our country. But yeah, Keith's asked, what was the most significant thing that surprised you after researching it? I don't know. That's a good one. I think it's probably the tunnels under Abbey Hulton, because when I was a kid, I used to play in this tunnel, so I knew it was there. And everybody always says, oh, there's tunnels under Abbey's, blah, 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 blah. But when I researched, it was actually a World War II bunker for the school. And the school was demolished. The school was built on top of the Abbey. They didn't know that the Abbey was there. Right. And when they knocked the Abbey down, they did an archaeological dig and found Hulton Abbey.
Yeah.
But when they put the school in, and it was during the war, they built these underground air raid shelters. And I used to play in one when I was a kid, even though the school had long gone. And they're still there now. It was just, I got this memory of a tunnel and all these rumours from the Abbey, and it turned out to be a World War II bunker. So that was quite surprising.
There's a rather splendid building not far from there, I think I'm right in saying, Ford Green Hall.
Yes.
That's a beautiful place.
Yeah, Tudor Hall. Yeah, that is a beautiful place. And across the road from that is Ford Green Farm, which is completely abandoned and has been completely burnt out. It's a Grade 2 listed building. Again, just another thing that's just been let down. But yeah, I think the reason I don't get out to metal detect enough is because I'm so busy with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just wish I could get out more. And I will do. I should. But what I really want to do is I'd really love to use my detecting to back up what I'm finding about history.
Yeah.
And finding that cannonball has set me off, because I would love to get more land up in Warrington to detect, to try and find more evidence of this battle. I don't know. Maybe I should
might be able to help you there.
Maybe I should speak to some of my farmer friends and see if we can set some digs up for us all to go up and find.
Might be able to help you. There's a chap I work with who's got friends in Warrington, and he's already said he'd speak to them about me going on their land. So
yeah,
could kill lots of birds with a stone.
Yeah, but again, instead of gatekeeping history like most people do, it'd be brilliant if we could set a dig up for everybody, cover as much ground as we can as possible, and see if we can find anything Civil War related, which would just strengthen it, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. It would. Civil War period. I mean, I've been up the Battle of Marston Moor a few times. Well, more than a few times. I spent a lot of time there, both doing with paranormal stuff, archaeological stuff, historical stuff, folklore, mythology. Absolutely love the feeling at Marston Moor up near York. It's a absolutely brilliant place.
Yeah.
Any more questions? I've got a few people. Somebody said they live near Basil. I nearly said Brush then, but it's not Basil Brush. Basil Brown of Sutton Hoo fame, and he used to get involved in school digs. A great ambassador for history. We spoke about that one. Have you looked into the tunnels under Sinai Park near Branston?
No. What's that about?
And somebody mentioned Tong earlier. And I'm just trying to get back to it.
Is that in
Tong Church is peppered with musket ball shots from the Civil War. And that was by... Who wrote that? Michael Jarvis. And I think Michael Jarvis is local there at Tong near Cosford in Shropshire.
Yeah.
Myself and two of my friends, we were actually in Shropshire doing a dig for a number of years until one of the paid groups got hold of the entire thousands of acres of the site and started to make lots of money on it. And we found, we looked at the history and found that there was a castle on the site, and the castle was destroyed during the Civil War. Basically all the building products from it went into the farm that's there today. And it's some of the finds that Graham and Dave have had up are absolutely phenomenal, and point to it being, but of the thousands of things that it's where we actually had a horde of, name of them, gone, mine's gone. Gaming tokens, somebody quick, gaming tokens, Jettons, there we go. We had a horde of Jettons off there between, I think there must have been about 50 between us, but at this current point. But obviously it's been gone over now by all and sundry, but absolutely fascinating. But yeah, you know.
Up by me. There's probably up in the moorlands near me that I know of 4 moated sites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that's left of them is the earthworks. And I didn't know, I can't find record of them. Don't know if they were castles, don't know if they were houses, but obviously they must be at least a few hundred years old for them to be completely gone. And when I speak to people, some people say, oh yeah, it's been detected. Someone detected it 10 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, but detectors are very different now than they were 10 years ago. And it's trying to get permission to get back onto them sites because they're not actually scheduled monuments.
Yeah.
They're just unrecognised.
One of Shane's sites that I've been on with a few times from is it's got a double moated manor on it that is scheduled, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's nothing there now, but obviously the undulating ground where the moat was, and it's we've obviously done it properly in that area. And we found loads of hammered coins. Well, I haven't found that. They found lots of hammered coins between them. And when we go back to Draycott, that area that we done the other week, we had hammered coins up. We had from Edward the First or the Second. Somebody will have to remind me what they were. We had Roman fibula brooches, Roman coins, lots of different. We even had a woad grinder and a Celtic unit up off there as well. So I'll let you know exactly where that site was. But you know,
I've also got permission on a very, very close to the Roman fort in Roaster.
Oh, right.
And you know the Roman road that runs through Draycott goes to Roaster.
Yeah.
And there was a fort there. It's a scheduled monument.
Yeah.
Well, this is like 2 or 3 fields down from that, just by the bridge. But again, I haven't had much time to go down to detect on it, because when I go down and detect on it, I want to do it properly.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
Shane and I, not very far away from that, we went on a site and I got what used to be my favourite detector. I bought one back, the MineLab X Terra 705, and we went on this site and all we were finding were bits of rivets and stuff like that. And it was only at because I'm an aircraft fitter by trade, it only occurred to me, hold on a minute, these aircraft, and we found the World War One. It was actually a World War One airfield at the back of Roaster. So here he is. Shane's in the chat now. Shane, this is Jenna. Jenna's our new friend, and she'll be coming on one of our digs in the future. And hopefully, she's going to come along to Tempest meetings as well.
Yeah.
Because she lives in Teen, Shane, and she's a local historian.
But yeah, I have also got permission in Malcop.
Yeah.
On what used to be a World War II anti-aircraft training area.
Right.
So that should be interesting, because there's also history of the Romans mining up there, because they used to mine the limestone grit.
Yeah.
So again, another 2,000 years worth of history there to detect.
Shane, she's already got land right in the middle of the area that we go to.
90 acres there.
90 acres there by where we had the first dig last year, basically, on the edge of the Roman road.
Yeah.
You'll know where. It's
just slightly down the road, because you've got the Roman road and then a stream and then my permission. So it's just off, which I always think is a good thing, because the Romans never buried the goods on the road. They always walked off the road to bury the goods before they got to the fort. So, and apparently as well in Draycott, as you go through Draycott, there's a couple of houses and a wall on the right hand side, and it's got some indents in it.
Yeah, we were talking to the landowner. It was his farm that we were on a couple of weeks ago.
Well, apparently,
I went all the way around them walls of that cliff face with his house. It's brilliant.
But apparently that was a blacksmith's, a Roman blacksmith.
Right.
That's
really?
what it was used for. Yeah.
Well, just behind there, I've got to have to tell you off screen, because Shane will tell me off for giving away his trade secrets. But there's a very interesting place at the back of that, and there's several forts that Shane's been able to identify in that area as well.
Yeah, I've got another permission just behind where that blacksmith is.
So is he.
Sounds like we might need to have a day out detecting together.
Is the farmer's name Graham?
No, it's not a farmer. It's someone's garden.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, so's he. He's got that.
They've got the oldest barn in Draycott.
Right.
It's been on Grand Designs. They had to. It's grade 1 listed.
Sarah's. He said, is it Sarah's?
Yeah, and then they've got the field at the back.
There you go, Shane.
In the field next door used to be something Roman. It used to be a Roman cockfighting pit.
Yeah, Shane. That's what I wasn't going to tell you, but Shane, he's been over that thoroughly, actually, that entire area. Has he been
in the field that I've got as a permission, though?
I don't know.
Because if not, you're welcome to come with me.
There you go, Shane. You like Shane. He's my best mate. He's awesome. Would do anything for anyone. If you need driving lessons, Shane will sort you out.
Yeah, I've got quite a lot of permissions in random places, because being a horse photographer, I know a lot of landowners.
Yeah.
A lot of people with horses, a lot of people with farms. So because they know me, they trust me. They know I'm not going to let the horses out and not leave big holes in the field and stuff like that. And you tend to find as well that a lot of people are interested in the history that you find. You find that the landowners want to see what you found and things like that. And I've never found anything valuable, so that's never been an argument.
The area that we're talking about, we've just been talking about. Shane absolutely despises it for the amount of
Crap.
Hold on, he's just asked me to send him the link so he can come and say hello. The amount of musket balls he's found there is astronomical.
And the amount of lead.
Yes. And in fact, on the Archaeology and Metal Detective magazine website, one of our posts is about one of Shane's find of a crucifix in them fields as well.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Let me just send him. Where is it? There it is. What's his name? Shane. Shane's coming on to co-host for the last 10 minutes. And then you can talk all that area between yourselves then.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise he'd messaged me as well. Sorry, Shane. So Shane will be joining us in a moment. It's mad, isn't it, when you realise that you go to the same places, the same places. As I say, we were talking to that chap a couple of weeks ago with the indentations in the wall. I was fascinated. I went off. Him and Shane were talking on the front, and I went off investigating, looking at it all, and it's brilliant because he was actually showing us, because they've had that building since he was a child. So it was actually still built into the wall when he was young, and then obviously it's fell into ruin a little bit, but there's still a lot of the toilet and that's still up there, the old outside toilet.
It does make sense. I'm trying to plug my charger in.
What are we doing? A can then?
Trying to get my charger in before my battery goes. It does make sense as well that would be a blacksmith's, because that was the main sort of route between the forts. Because you got a fort at Wolstanton in Newcastle, and then you got a fort in Roaster, and you got the main road between Derby and Chester.
Yeah.
Don't ask me what it was called. I can't remember.
The Derby to Chester Road.
Yeah. So you've got to think all of the horses that were going along this road would have needed a farrier.
Yeah.
On top of that as well, you'd also need metal work doing. Hello.
Shane, Jenna, Shane.
You all right?
Hi. Which way? Hi.
What are you doing now? Oh, there you are. Just got it right.
How are you?
Shane, come on. You know the rules. Turn your phone on its side.
Okay. I'm normally on.
That's better.
There we go. But yes, I've got a lot of land in that area. I've got about 5,000 plus acres of permission around there so far.
Yeah.
And we've done a hell of a lot of it, and we've found some. We've been talking about all the area, all the different things, and what have you. And obviously, Jenna's got permission in that area, and I was telling her about the Roman finds that you've had in the area, and we're going to have to take her somewhere where she can get some Roman up there, Shane.
Yeah, definitely.
Got some more hopefully coming up shortly. I went down to Congreves last week, but I didn't realise that he's a detectorist as well, the actual landowner. So he basically said, you can come on here, he says, but it's crap. He says it used to all be woods, there's nothing here, basically. I've been over it for years and years and years.
Well, the good thing is the permission that I've got that way has never been detected because the farm has been in the family for a few generations.
If you're going up the driveway, is it the right side one or the left side one?
What drive?
Just before the river.
No, it's in Savile Green.
Oh, right. I thought you meant the team.
No, in Savile. But it backs on almost to the Roman road at the top.
Yeah.
So it's as close as you want to be, really. It's not close enough to the road to be full of tin cans. And one of the fields actually used to have a horse race on it in Victorian times.
Yeah, I think I know where that is. It's all myth, isn't it, basically? But I think I know where it is.
No, there genuinely was a horse race on there.
Oh, on the Savile.
They had a steeplechase every week, which is basically like horse racing, but they used the hunt horses, and then they used to race around the field and basically get drunk and gamble a lot. And And then there's also been country fairs on there and things. So I think one day when I was detecting, I found £15 in actual pound coins on there for when there used to be car boot sales, a couple of toy cars and things. So there's a lot of crap in that one field, but luckily that's only one field.
I try and work out where it is because I know where the old car boot sale used to be. I've been on there. If that's the one you mean.
If you've detected it, you won't be thinking of the right place.
There was one I went on last year, and long story short, the landowners are they're hard to get on with, and they let me on a maze one which was cut, and as soon as I walked
No,
in the gate,
this is just
up
grass. It's not a farm, it's just grass, it's just horses.
Oh, right.
They cut it for hay. But yeah, it's there's nothing there. And when you look on the records, there's never been anything there. It's always been farmland. It's always been pasture land. The plus side is there's a hall nearby. So I found quite a lot of coins, but semi-recent, like Victorian, that sort of thing. Yeah. Buttons and buckles and things.
Our best in the area so far has been the Roman order I had up with Steve.
Yeah.
We had 5 silver denarii. It was all within like a 10-meter area, and then we had, for some reason, an ancient Greek coin in there and a Syrian coin, which was a bit strange.
Probably been bought over in the pockets, have they?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping I can get. I could get something from the land at Roaster, because there's absolutely no way that you can have a land that close to a Roman fort and there'd be nothing Roman in that field.
Is it opposite the fort?
No.
No, I was going to say that's been done to death in previous history.
No, all of the fields around it have been done. All of them. All the stubble fields have been done. All of the grassland. But this land, I think there's 5 acres and it's privately owned.
Yeah.
And I've got permission off them people to detect it. But it also floods in the winter, which is interesting.
Yeah. Which means that it probably would have been flooded back in the Roman days as well.
Yep. It's a floodplain.
Sea levels were a bit higher.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that things were washed up there. I did find a few nails. And when I say nails, I mean nails that I think, judging from the research I did on them, looked Roman.
Yeah.
Which again would make sense because the fort was made out of wood.
I had about 4 Roman coins next to Sarah's on the cockpit area.
Yeah.
There was nothing around the cockpit. It's all basically been manipulated, that has, and they've had it as a feature and all other stuff. Like my dream was there with that pit was to find a spur. I wanted a silver spur.
Yeah.
But it's just all been manipulated and edited. The only thing I think I had off there was a 5p and a George II, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, that's the good thing about. I mean, I got some permissions on like stubble land and stuff, but I didn't find much there. And the things that I did find were toasted. But I do find with the pasture land that's just been pasture land its whole life, that the quality of the finds are much better.
Yeah.
The coins that I'm finding look like I pulled them up yesterday. Look like they were dropped yesterday.
That was probably the downy side of the rally me and Dave did, because the finds came up absolutely immaculate, didn't they, mate? They were one of the best diamonds I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were ridiculously deep because it had never been ploughed.
Yeah.
It wasn't even ridge and furrow. It was plough.
This has never been ploughed. It's always been pasture land. And before it was pasture land, probably 1,000 years ago, it was woodland.
Yeah.
So it's very good quality land. I mean, I found a Tudor shoe buckle. It's still got the leather on it.
I'm hoping the next one we're doing, it is about 10 minutes from Teen, that's it. But it's I'm not going to say the area in case whoever's watching, but it's it's opposite to Norman Church, if you know where that is, just down the road.
Yeah. Wow, I'd love to come on that. Yeah, let me know.
About 120 acres.
She's already been invited, Shane, by the way.
Yeah.
We've been behind it where there's a barrow as well, me and Steve-O, but he was dead. There was nothing on there.
Yeah.
Like
I tried to get permission on the field. You know, there's a burial in Teen, in Lower Teen. But but the farmers are really, really weird about it because they have a lot of problems with dog walkers on their land because they've got footpaths through the land. So they don't really want detectorists on there because the dog walkers have ruined it, basically.
I was always interested in Cheadle's, and I ended up going up there. You know, the mountain that overhangs
Yeah.
behind where the racetrack used to be.
Yeah.
Went right up to the top of there where that tree recently fell, and obviously the myth in the area was that with it being called Tomman's Low, the Latin translation used to be to top man's low, so the top man was buried on the low.
Yeah.
So so he was. They reckon he was buried high. So when you walk up that mountain, you can see like it's normal grass, and then as you get
you
to
mean
like
the point as you're coming out of tea?
yeah,
I can see that out my kitchen window.
yeah, if you walk up it,
yeah.
it like changes. The grass does. You know what the farmers call sweet grass, where it's been manipulated, but the grass grows finer and sweeter for the cows. Changes to that halfway up as if it was actually a burial or some sort of barrow or something. But I couldn't find
it.
Yeah, I couldn't. It's too deep if there is.
Yeah. Well, I've got permission on some of the fields around there.
The lower ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, Fee Cooley, you've actually been on where we were talking about when you came out of us originally. That was by the cockpit where we were talking about a moment ago.
It's mental, that permission was. No, that particular farmer was excessively grumpy. He's literally never told anyone yes. It's been in the family for at least 500 years.
Yeah, they're the best.
Luckily, my mum knew him. That's how I actually got to the area. We went up and he's like, oh, he's iffy and gnawing. My mum's got a foul mouth on her and she says, stop being a tight arse so-and-so and let him on. Next thing you know, he's following me around and I wasn't finding anything because I was quite new at it at the time.
Yeah.
And there was that much on there, which Dave can say how much has come off there so far. It was like, blah, 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 blah. It was again waving me to coil over and I was like, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is digging horseshoes and stuff. Once I got the hang of it and went back, it was like in one day I was having 15 silvers and a hammered with another 45 coins, 100 musky balls. It was crazy.
And where's
first step into that field, I had a Simba thimble, didn't I? Jane?
Yeah. It was like the cockpit one when I took Fod and Rick out for the first time. We went on there, I pulled up a silver Adrian. Silver Roman Hadrian, then a massive. I've got a picture of it on my phone. Big, massive Constius. They've both had a silver. I've had another silver. All within it's only an acre field.
That's crazy.
Oh, Shane's lost. He's back again. Oh, there he is. Well, listen, everybody. Firstly, Jenna, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been fascinating for me, and I know we've got so much to talk about off air in the future.
Thank you very much for having me.
And obviously, we'd like you to come back on in October at some point, and we will talk about something a little bit different, like we do every year. And I'll even go as far as to send you some videos of some TV programs that are done at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Shane, I will speak to you shortly, no doubt. Next week, we do have another big guest. Mickey Richardson's joining us. And Mickey, he had a bit of a find a few weeks ago, didn't he, Shane?
Yes. Just a little one, a lucky so-and-so.
How many?
Over 1,000.
Over 1,000 Roman coins.
Wow. And I haven't found one.
To be fair, that permission, they've even got the Rasals. They're going to come in on the t-shirts. I bet you they've made themselves a little gay name for each other's now. Doing a team. But it was Stevie Elliott. Stevie Elliott's been in Dig Life for a long time, and that's how majority of people knew him.
Yeah.
He's come over from South Africa, and he's come to move over. He's moved over, got his first permission, and this Roman horde's come off it.
I actually had my first Roman coin in the farm that I mentioned before, where we had our first dig. Me and Shane went up to have a look. I took my son with me, and I went, "Oh, yeah, Sonny, I'll show you what to do in this hole." And it was a big bloody Roman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't get that
first Roman.
See, it skipped me.
Right. Yeah, as I say, thank you very much, Jenna, for coming on. Don't forget to look up the Red Haired Stokie on
Yes,
YouTube
I've
and
got it open
Facebook.
here. Yeah.
And also you can read all the blogs on the redheadedstokie.co.uk. And there's some fantastic reads on there as well. Same time, same place next week. Missed you, Adrian, because I know you're going to watch it back at some point. But I think we've done all right tonight. So we're happy with that. So we will see you all at the same time, same place. Jenna, don't go anywhere. We'll be with you in 40 seconds. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.